This lesson is all about learning to vent, just have a way to rant, because in this line of work, we encounter so many different situations whereby if when we finish our shifts and we don't have a way to let it out, to vent, to rant, then what most likely will happen is we'll end up just bottling it in and then take it out on a customer who least deserves it. Someone who all they might have been is just simply drunk. Though that's not an excuse, but they wouldn't have said anything that would require us to take such levels of force. But that's why I think this particular lesson is very important, because there was an incident where I was verbally insulted, and the thing was, it wasn't simply the nature of the insult, or it wasn't simply the nature of the insult alone. It was also the individual who, albeit drunk, was being insulting, and it really got me to a point where I did become quite irritated, purely because it wasn't something I would expect from a fully grown individual, and by that I mean, I guess as some people mature, they don't really change a great deal, mentally speaking, because this particular individual in question was pretty much over the age of 60 plus, yet the level of insults and the depths in which they lower themselves to use certain insults was in my view staggering. And of course, I'm not going to repeat any of the insults here, but all I learned that day was that when people have alcohol in them, no matter how mature in years they are, how much you would expect, how much you'd come to think that perhaps they would have learned a lesson or two about growing up, something that they may want to pass, something positive that they may want to pass on to their grandkids in this case. Sadly, seems like it won't be anything positive. It doesn't seem like it'll be anything positive this individual will be passing on. Because my colleague who was working with me that night saw a visible change in me as the insults were being leveled in my direction. Looking back now, I can definitely laugh it off, but it was just pure shock in terms of how by simply asking a overly drunk customer to leave, in the most polite way as you can, without any physical altercations or anything, the individual in question just decided to start saying comments and things that only and I did say this to the customer, those are the types of insults I would expect from his grandkids, teenagers from the ages of 14, 15, who've not had that much life experience or have had much exposure to the world, and they couldn't think of any other insults to come up with, but the most childish and to some degree, very petty type of forms of insults. These were the ones that was being launched in my direction. And to be honest, I'm a bit disappointed, because at least I would have expected someone of those advancing years to come up with something more refined, something that was much more thought-provoking. But I guess the nature of that and those insults were thought-provoking come from who the person was. Either way, the result of that night was the customers who came up to me afterwards, I did feel myself thinking back on what this customer said to me, and it clearly impacted the way I dealt with other customers as they entered the venue and also exited the venue. Because for a short time, albeit, I was caught up in a thought process of thinking back to what might have happened to this individual for them to make such hurtful comments towards someone who did them no harm. And again, drink is no excuse. There must have been something that triggered this individual, not by any member of staff, from what I was witnessed, because everyone in the venue was pretty much calm with this person. I guess I'll just leave it at that, to be honest. But the lesson I learned is that with us as door supervisors, what we do every day, the days when it's incident free, we end up leaving, taking a big breath out, because every shift we start, most of us won't realize this, but every shift we start, there are times when, especially if we've had an experience such as that, or even worse, the night before or the week before, and we go back to, and we are stationed at the same venue, we're always holding our breath, thinking, what does this night hold for us? And it's only when the shift has ended and there hasn't been any incident, that is when we take that big sigh of relief, and release all that breath that we held in, just hoping that the night goes well and everything runs smoothly. And as a result, for some of us, we have hobbies and means of, I could say, working through these moments of frustration, these moments of frustration where we know too well that because of the badge, we need to watch how we act with customers that may not have physically assaulted us, but would have said something verbally abusive that to some degree it could potentially spill over. And if we can't control ourselves by what they say, it could result in us losing our badge and maybe worse. And therefore, I've seen that for such reasons, it's important that we have a means of letting it out, a means of ranting or venting in a way, in a safe way where it's not going to cost us our job. It could cost us our colleague's ear, because that is one way. That is one way some of us let things out. I know for me personally, on that particular night, my colleague had to hear briefly of my shock, and I mean, again, I didn't realize I was venting, but yeah, he had to hear a bit of it. But then once I became aware of that, then I decided to just go home and just work through it on my own, without having to have my colleague's ear just heat up from me just ranting nonstop about that particular customer. And then, of course, I found the podcast. So I used that to. So now I rant to the internet. Only this once, though. Other colleagues, of course, have partners, spouse, and unfortunately, if you are a spouse of a security officer, a security operative, specifically that works in hospitality or directly with the public on a regular basis, then sadly you'll end up hearing more about you'll end up being the ear that they require to just vent and rant on the day's activities. But however we let out our frustrations, I found that it's best to definitely control how what people say to us. I found that it's best to go somewhere to take up either a hobby or find some other ways of letting out our frustrations. Sometimes they say exercise is good. I don't know. Um, other times they say owning a punching bag is good, which I think I should probably invest in that. If I'm going to be in this industry for a long time, just so I can just take out my frustrations on the punching bag should I ever encounter similar situations, which, to be fair, it's one of those industries where it will it will impact it will have an impact on our day-to-day lives. For me personally, I take up reading um, to just forget about all the things that have happened at the that may have happened on the night of a shift. But with other colleagues, I've noticed it's very unprofessional when you start seeing a colleague being engaging in a verbal back and forth with a customer, um, just throwing insults in each other's direction. It doesn't help the image of the individual. It doesn't help the image of the venue itself, um, whether it's in the building or out in a public space. For example, up on the street, it doesn't help at all. With some people, it's just a matter of accepting that once they've had that one too many alcohol in their system, their personality most likely changes, and it's not who they are. And we've just got to accept that if that's the way they want to be treated, that's the way they want to be treated. But it's not our place to allow ourselves to lose our professionalism in the way we conduct ourselves, especially with the customers that come after such an incident, because it wouldn't be fair on them whereby we take our frustrations out from the experience of the previous customer and pass it on to the new customer or the next customer that turns up immediately after the event or after the incident. That's it for this episode. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode.